Coming up next, On the Spot, we bring you live demos for Shadows of the Damned and the new DLC for Call of Duty Black Ops Escalation. Next, we got an exclusive trailer for Guardian Heroes HD and go old school with a demo of the original Guardian Heroes on the Sega Saturn. Speaking of old school, we celebrate Video Game History Month with a look at the Duke Nukem franchise and Tokyo Game Show. Andrew Park gets a PvP interview for Star Wars The Old Republic, and Aaron Sampson gets you updated on the latest This Week in Digital downloads. We're live and on the spot.
Damas y caballeros, feliz 5 de mayo y bienvenido a Today on the Spot. It's today, we're on the spot, we're live, and I'm your host, Chris Waters, joined here, kicking it off with a live demo. It's Joel Wade, executive producer from EA. Joel, welcome to the set.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we're excited to have you on Cinco de Mayo to show off Shadows of the Damned.
That's right.
What are we? Set it up for us while we launch into it. Give us, I think a lot of people are curious about this title, and we want to see it.
Well, there is a lot to be curious about, frankly. I mean, this title, this is some of the craziest shit I've ever seen in a video game, and I've worked on a lot of video games.
You've been around video games a long time, and this is something special?
This is something special. This is something that most people will have never seen, but we wanted to give a little love, a little amore, if you will.
Excellent.
To the GameSpot, the on-spot live audience.
Fantastic, and we'd love to see it.
Well, we're going to jump in. We're going to look at the very beginning of the game. So this is the tutorial mission.
Okay.
And so just a taste of the mechanics, just a little bit of setup on the main characters and the story. And then the madness thing about this game is that it just gets crazier and crazier and more fun and more funny as you go.
So keep that in mind throughout this demo, folks, that if you think what you're seeing is crazy, it only gets crazier.
You ain't seen nothing yet. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so we open on a gloomy street in some back alley.
That's right, and there's our hero, Garcia Hotspur, professional demon hunter. Now, what we did with this game, we're working with the Grasshopper manufacturer in Tokyo. Big props to them for actually getting this game done after the tsunami, the nuclear scare, everything that hit them.
Yeah.
But they got the game out. We are just about to go gold. And we got what we call, it's our dream team. We call them the Nightmare Team. Suda51, the craziest mad scientist game developer in history.
That's an accurate description.
Shinji Mikami, one of the most polished, tight, mechanics-focused guys in the world. Resident Evil, of course, Devil May Cry. And then Yamoka-san, who is one of the most celebrated composers in the business.
So that's the Nightmare Team.
Right. So they got together. And what they really wanted to do is create a title that is punk, so a little edgy, a little different than your normal polished stuff.
Okay.
But also really inspired by Grindhouse, by Tarantino and Rodriguez, and something that really maybe sort of doesn't quite take itself completely seriously all the time.
Yep. I like that. It's sort of that grimy, the dude, he's got tattoos all over him, Garcia does, and look at this character. He's got, a goat head? He's wearing, chainmail underwear?
Well, one of the crazy things, so the premise of the story, it's not a crazy premise in that you've got a guy, he's a professional demon hunter, and he's out here killing demons.
Yeah, just trying to make a living.
But ultimately, it's about guy meets girl gets stolen by the devil to hell, guy must rescue girl.
That age-old classic.
But this is no hell like you've ever seen it before, and that's where the beauty of Suda51 comes in. One of the most creative guys in the industry, right? No More Heroes, Killer 7. He thinks of stuff that it just blows your mind.
Really striking visions that, it's that his artistic style is so distinct and so creative.
Yes, it's inspiring and scary at the same time. And funny, which is part of the true charm of this game. So what we're looking at now is sort of what Mikami sort of brings to the title is, and we're teaching you the beginning of the mechanics. Any fan of Resident Evil is going to instantly feel very comfortable with this game. And here what we're seeing is, unfortunately, Garcia's come home. He's kicked some demon's ass, and there's a problem.
Oh yeah, that's not what you want to come home to. No, and this is the girl you mentioned earlier?
This is Paula, yes, that's right. And Suda51 doesn't like to waste any time.
Oh
Let's
my
have a demon bust out of your girlfriend while she's hanging from the ceiling.
I was just thinking this scene could use a little levity.
And what
Good Lord.
And this is just how the game starts. This is what I'm trying to tell you. So this is the first 10 minutes of the game, so we start you real slow. We're teaching you the mechanics.
Yep,
And
you
of
got
course,
that familiar over-the-shoulder laser targeting.
That's
yeah,
right.
Resident Evil.
Like I said, anyone who loves Resident Evil is going to love this game. But we kicked it up a notch, so it's much faster paced. Not only can you shoot and run and gun while on the move, unlike the sort of Resident Evil stuff, so much faster.
Yeah.
We've upped the arsenal, so much bigger upgrade of weapons and the weapon classes you're able to use.
And you're not using, I mean, you can look at this pistol, one look tells you this isn't like, you know, a STARS standard issue sidearm.
That's right. And this is the weakest gun in the entire game. You only have one gun available to you right now in the tutorial sequences. They're teaching you basically how to move, how to get crazy badass headshots, how to stomp people to death. But there's a massive upgrade system with 3 classes of weapons and a torch, which you actually use as a melee. Sorry, 3 classes of firearms, a melee weapon, and a massive upgrade system. So one of the things that Mikami is near and dear to his heart is a vendor who can sell you micro upgrades.
Yes. What are you buying?
Yes, exactly. So we brought that back. But there's also a
demon jump.
More of a macro upgrade where the weapons actually change dramatically in their functionality.
Okay.
So you'll see this is the boner. It fires bones. This is your standard firearm.
Of course.
But it upgrades into, at one point, the big boner, which you have to see to believe.
I'm looking forward to that. And so the ammunition for that changes as well?
Well, bone is your ammunition for the boner, but you also have the teether, which is your automatic weapon, which fires teeth. Right.
That's fantastic.
You have the mono cushion, which actually fires skulls. It's more of a heavy sort of shotgun weapon. But at one point it'll actually change so it fires 4 projectiles at once, heat-seeking projectiles. I mean, they really had a lot of fun with the weapons.
So I take it from the sound of this arsenal that you're not just going to be shooting shambling little demons the whole time.
That's right. And in fact, speaking of not just little demons, we have the world-exclusive reveal of our villain.
Look at that guy.
This is Fleming, a.k.a. Lord of the Demons.
He's like a triple-decker demon.
He's kind of a badass. And frankly, he is thoroughly pissed at you.
At Garcia.
Garcia has been laying waste to his minions on Earth, as professional demon hunters, or good ones, are known to do.
Yeah.
So he goes after Garcia where it hurts. He takes the love of his life, Paula, and he's actually going to take her back to hell. Where the other thing that Suda and Mikami are famous for are their epic boss battles, right?
Yes.
So add the epic size and grandeur of a Mikami boss battle, the creativity of a Suda boss battle, and I think
And you got a reason why you call them the Nightmare Team.
we do have a reason to call them the Nightmare Team. People are in for a treat.
The mind reels at what kind of thing those guys could come up with when you're seeing, this kind of craziness in the first few minutes of the game.
That's right.
So big bosses you're going to be encountering when you head into hell.
That's right.
As well as, hordes of, multifarious demons, it would seem. This is a lengthy adventure you guys are gearing up for?
It is a lengthy adventure. So the average player is probably going to spend about 15 hours. And we know that because we have a lot of people play it.
Okay.
One of the things you're not seeing here because of the tutorial, though, is that this is really a thinking man shooter. In that, and you can see, looking back at some of the other footage released, light and dark are the real theme of this game. Kind of like Alan Wake, but we like to think better.
Okay.
Where you really have to pay attention to, am I in light, am I in darkness? Light does damage to demons, and darkness, actually, when you're in hell, is lethal to you. And so you're constantly trying to take advantage of, am I making the most of light and dark in combat and taking advantage of that, and in puzzles, and sometimes both at the same time.
Now, is that something, is that light-dark mechanic, is that dictated by the environment or, by an item you have? What kind of control are you having over that element?
There's all kinds of ways that it's just a huge variety of ways that you'll manipulate it once you're in hell. Everything from goat heads that actually eat darkness and can produce light. There's a special light shot mode on your gun that you can use to set things on fire. There's fireworks dispensers that set temporary light. There's creatures that have their own light source, much like sort of anglerfish in our world, but add Suda and you go even further.
Sprinkle some hell on them. And,
That's
you
right. So
now you folks have been keeping track here. Hopefully, been reading these subtitles, because as you're saying, it's not a game that's taking itself too seriously. There's a good amount of humor in here.
the dialogue is truly a thing of beauty. You have to remember that it's very tongue-in-cheek, and jump in and you're in for a hell of a ride. So there's one more character here that's critical that we need to introduce to you, and that's Johnson. So Johnson is
a flaming, floating skull?
On the surface, sure, but what he really is he's a shape-shifting demon.
Okay.
So the beauty of this is that Johnson is your friend. You've actually won him in a previous battle with another demon, taken him for your own, because he is not only, he's your friend, but he's your guide through hell because he's lived there.
Okay, he knows the ropes.
But he changes shape. So you'll see right now, he's actually going to transform into the melee weapon. He also transforms into each of your firearms.
Really?
So
that's handy.
Yeah, he's your friend, he's your guide, and he's actually your weapon of choice.
And he's your weapon arsenal.
That's right.
And you'll be upgrading him as you go along.
Yes, that's right.
Cool. We got a question coming in from the chat room. Squall wants to know, in terms of the structure of the game, you mentioned obviously Devil May Cry, Resident Evil. Does it tend towards one or the other? The sort of more at straightforward adventure of Resident Evil versus a more mission-based Devil May Cry?
I think we're going to go closer to the Resident Evil camp in this one.
And so like letter grades at the end of different sections? Do you have sort of any kind of scoring system like that?
No, but it's much more about what they really wanted to focus on was building that relationship between Johnson and Garcia. So Garcia is the badass demon hunter.
Yep. Johnson
is your counter. He's your buddy. And in fact, it's the one way of looking at this game is that it's you're Johnson on the craziest road trip through hell you can possibly imagine.
Sounds like a great setup for a buddy comedy / horror grindhouse flick.
That's right.
Now, this is an awesome motorcycle that... do you get to drive the awesome motorcycle at all?
Oh. Well, we all know that motorcycles are the preferred mode of transport when you're trying to get to hell. But sadly...
once you're there,
when you get to hell, it's really about the firepower.
You really got to park out front.
And the light and dark puzzles.
Yes, they don't like those vehicles coming into hell. No,
that's right.
You got to park it at the door. All right, very cool. Now, have we wrapped up the demo? Have we shown people the Shadows of the Dam and piqued their interest?
We have. It's just a little taste. It's just the first few minutes of the game. A lot of setup there, but we wanted to, give your audience a little bit of love.
Well, they've been loving it. If there's, if the chat room's any indication, folks are definitely intrigued by this game.
Fantastic.
And there's a bunch of laughing going on in there too. I'm gonna have to go back and read the subtitles myself.
Yeah.
Joel, thanks so much for bringing this by, showing it off to us, giving us a taste of Shadows of the Damned. When can we get this in our hands? When is this game coming out?
Yeah, despite a tsunami and an earthquake and radiation damage, this hits the shelves June 21st.
June 21st for the
PS3 and 360.
Fantastic. Joel, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Looking forward to seeing more of Shadows of the Damned as the months go along. Now, folks, I'm going to knock my paper around a bit here and then tell you we are off to our first taped segment of the show. As you saw at the beginning, we had a little Star Wars, Star Wars The Old Republic. We've got an interview today focusing on PvP. So, what are you going to do when a Jedi comes at you swinging their lightsaber? Find out in this interview.
Well, we're here at EA with Emmanuel of Bioware. Emmanuel, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming. I hope you're having fun.
Yes, definitely. We're actually getting a chance to really dive into the PvP now. Can you give us kind of an overview of Warzone PvP and how it works?
All right, so the Warzone you've seen today was the Underground Warzone, which is 8 players from the Republic versus 8 players from the Empire. It's a pretty simple concept. They are each trying to control 3 turrets and turn them against the other side's ship and shoot it down.
One thing about that we noticed when we were playing in the Warzone is that it's very much objective based. Definitely, there are players who said, "Hey, let's just hang back, try to get as many kills as possible," but that didn't necessarily contribute directly to winning the map. Was that on purpose?
Definitely, we are trying to really promote a good community in PvP, and we are rewarding among other things, team building and helping your teammate, but also just doing the objectives. So in the first match, even though the Empire were really leading up in damage and kill, they end up losing the match because they were not paying attention to capturing the turrets and turning them against the enemy. So it's definitely on purpose.
Okay, so we've noticed when we're playing PvP, I mean, definitely Star Wars: Old Republic is a game about, living out the fantasy of being a hero in the Star Wars universe. That said, characters are going to get some really, really powerful abilities that they can use to, kill a bunch of monsters, which is great, but in PvP it may not be as fun to have these heroic abilities inflicted on you, so I guess the way that's kind of been resolved in Warzone PvP is this concept of control versus resolve. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, definitely. So as you mentioned, we have a lot of effect we consider controlling because they take away your ability to move or act, and we wanted to keep them in the game because they're actually some of the most fun and visually stunning ability. Let's just give an example. The flamethrower would disable your enemies while you're setting them on fire. Now, what we've introduced is a simple concept, that of resolve, and as bad or terrible things happening to your character, as control is taken away from your character, you just build up resolve quite quickly, really. And once your resolve meter is full, everybody can see that, and now you become immune to further controlling effect for a good amount of time, 8 seconds right now. So it's a mix. Some classes that really rely on being able to control another character so that they can set up their move can still do that, but they have to pay attention whether the person has built up resolve or not. So there's a really tactical element to it.
And so it seems like in PvP there are a great many incentives to get in there, get in the war zones, get some PvP done. For instance, I guess there's a whole Valor system with tokens. Can you talk about how that works?
So you're right, there's a lot of incentive, but we also give more incentive, more reward to the people, to the players that are playing their role. So when you pick an advanced class in the Old Republic, you get access to different roles for yourself. Let's say you could be a healer or a damage dealer or a tank. And whichever role you pick, we want to reward you for playing that. So we have a system of badges that are going to be rewarding you for doing what you're supposed to do. As a healer, you get badges for healing other people, reaching certain number of healing points and so on. And all of this is going to contribute to the total reward you get for playing the Warzone. One of the things we are rewarding you is Valor points, which is essentially a way to rank you against every other person on the server and see how much Valor you've accumulated. It always go up. It's really literally how much PvP and how well you've been doing. We also give you Valor tokens, which is a PvP currency you can use to buy good equipment for yourself. PvP-centric equipment, obviously.
Okay, and in addition to some of these incentives and rewards, PvP just seems like it's not just something maybe that you would dabble in and then kind of leave. I mean, it seems like there's a really full-fledged game that you can earn loot, you can earn experience points, you can earn full sets of armor and items. I mean, is it how far can players go in PvP? Can they spend their entire career, for instance, in PvP?
If they wanted to, I mean, we are going to limit the PvP. You need to be a certain level to start it, which is going to be pretty low, probably level 10, still being debated. But after that, if you wanted to stay in PvP, as the game stands now, you could stay it for forever. One of the things is we are not really concerned. We think we have a very strong rest of the game, like your class story is definitely something that is going to drive people forward. But if what you really like to do is PvP, you can do that and you can earn the same kind of reward that you would be doing other activity. If you do a flashpoint, for example, which is kind of a group-centric activity, you're going to earn really good experience, loot, credit for doing so, and therefore we're going to reward you equally if you're spending time in PvP, definitely.
So there's definitely going to be very directed PvP in the war zones, which have their own set of rewards and goals and objectives. But is it fair to say that there's also going to be some other types of PvP, perhaps just out in the open world?
Right. So we're going to have two kinds of server, at least. One is a PvP server and one is a PvE server. That's pretty traditional. But even on a PvE server, we are going to specify certain zone as being a PvP zone, a zone of conflict where you can encounter other players of the other faction and get into a fight. So definitely if you don't like PvP and you join a PvE server, you would have a way to avoid the zone, but we also want it, I mean, it's Star Wars, there's a conflict going on, it's important that you see the other side and that you can engage them.
Manuel, PvP is traditionally considered by a lot of a lot of people who play online games to be, the sanctuary of really hardcore players and players who are very, very skilled, who really want the challenge of getting in there and grinding out these PvP battles. There may be some players out there who are very big Star Wars fans, but maybe not as big into these games. They may duck their head into PvP, and some people may be fearing, hey, I might step into PvP, get completely vaporized within minutes, and never want to come back. What is the Old Republic doing to kind of incentivize or just to ease new players into the PvP?
That's a great question. So one of the good things we have is we have this value system that is a score that tells us how well you're doing in PvP, how often you're doing it, and so on. And another thing that is playing well for us is we have a matchmaking system. So when people queue up for a Warzone that they can do actually nearly anywhere in the game, there's a button on the main UI and say, yeah, I'd like to do some PvP. They click on it. We take all those players and we try to match them in level, match them also in skills. Another thing we are doing is that if you're queuing as a group, most likely I've been training as a group and you're going to be more efficient than people that are just queuing and by themselves. So the matchmaking system is going to try really to give you a good experience. But we also know that our decision is that if we can't match people perfectly, we'd rather start a Warzone and have people actually go in the game and play it rather than waiting forever for the perfect matchup. So it's a bit of a compromise, but if we manage to get a really healthy PvP community, which we certainly hope we are going to, there will be a lot of Warzone at the same time, and naturally you'll be slotted with people of equal rank, equal skills.
Makes sense. Okay, man. Well, that's a really good overview, good look at the PvP in the Old Republic. For the folks at home watching, can you remind us when the game is coming out and for which platforms?
It's a PC game, and it's coming out in 2011.
All right, folks, we are back live now. A quick word before Tor Thorson and I get into the news. If you enjoyed that Shadows of the Damned demo as much as I did, that's going to be live on the site. As you know, our shows get archived, so you can watch them on demand anytime after the show ends. That demo is going to be up there before the show ends, so you can go back and see all the lewd jokes in there that you might have missed. Now, without further ado, Tor Thorson's got the news. And Twitter is lighting up, sending us questions with, the most pertinent issue of this day. PSN, what the deal?
Well, they said it was going to be up a week ago on Tuesday, so it didn't go up on Tuesday, and it's not up on Wednesday. Now it's Thursday, and it's still not up. So they said it was going to be up this week sometime on Saturday. So technically they've got 2 more days to get it up before they kind of go against their word.
But we're already at past 2 weeks?
We're past 2 weeks. Today's day 15.
Whew. Good gracious.
Good golly, Ms. Molly.
So what, they've, it's been in the news. What's the latest?
The latest stuff is on yesterday, Sony actually answered a bunch of questions posed to it by the U.S. Congress.
Oh.
They listed a long laundry list, and they provided a really, really detailed timeline of how this happened. And I'm not going to go over that right now because it would take 20 minutes. But it's all available on news.gamespot.com. You can check it out there. One of the most pertinent revelations coming out of that letter was that they said not some, but all 77 million PlayStation users have had their information taken.
Oh, wow.
Not all of their information. There's like bits and pieces here and there, but
okay,
all
so not like 100,
million.
Not quite. Those hackers didn't quite get the 100% achievement.
They got 100% achievement of getting part of everybody's information,
okay,
but not 100% of 100%.
Okay, all right.
If that makes any sense.
But they still did an incredibly thorough job.
Well, pretty much.
Yeah. Wow.
Being hackers and all. But so some comfort, of the 77 million accounts, only 12.3 million account holders had credit card information on file, and only 5.6 of those were in the U.S. And those numbers include both active and inactive credit card information, so a lot of those were also expired as well. So that's not quite as bad as everyone said.
So it's not 77 million credit card numbers, but it's still millions of credit card numbers.
It's still millions of credit card numbers were exposed to the hackers. So that's not the most comforting thought.
That's a lot.
Speaking of not comforting thoughts, one guy who did show up to the congressional hearings was Dr. Gene Spafford, who is a cybersecurity expert at Purdue University.
Okay.
And he put some pretty harsh words for Sony. He said that he read on forums that no, that's not. He said he heard on these special forums that were dedicated to Sony security that Sony was running old versions of Apache web server software that was unpatched and had no firewall installed.
No firewall?
That's that's congressional testimony from a cybersecurity expert.
Wow.
And he said that 2 to 3 months before the attack, the vulnerability was reported in an open forum monitored by Sony employees, where the company took no action.
Took no action, and now
they're taking action. They said they're moving their servers to a whole new extra secure facility. They're adding additional firewalls.
We're totally on it,
enhancing
guys.
data encryption and protection, and increasing automated software monitoring. And they've hired no less than 3 cybersecurity firms to help them with the investigation.
Wow. Oh, so the investigation to figure out what exactly
happened,
what all the flaws were, what was exploited.
It's all outlined in the
down.
timeline we have on the site right now.
Okay.
But it's so they're taking action now. But as you know, George Hotz said, they probably should have hired experts versus hiring a bunch of lawyers to sue him. Spafford also cited postings in credit card theft forums in which thieves of such information complained that the PSN breach has devalued the value of stolen credit card information by a factor of 5 to 10. So apparently all these credit card thieves trying to make a good, honest living, put food on the table for their
all they want to do is
children.
thieve some people's money and get earn a wage. But instead they're going on thievery forums and complaining.
And in Sony's letter to Congress, they mentioned that one of the people who've intruded left a signature that implicated Anonymous, the hacker collective that openly hacked the PSN earlier in the month. But Anonymous, even though they don't have a hierarchy or they don't have a central.
They don't have a PR bureau.
They don't have a PR bureau. They don't have a president or anything like that. They issued a press release saying that they were not behind this attack once again. And speaking out against credit card info theft. They said public support is not gained by stealing credit card info and personal identities, and we are trying to fight criminal activities by corporations and governments, not steal credit cards. And then they said if a legitimate and honest investigation into the credit card theft is conducted, Anonymous will not be found liable. That's what Anonymous says, but the problem is that they can't speak for every member of Anonymous because there could be a rogue faction in there somewhere, some very angry, incredibly capable guy in a basement somewhere.
So what they're saying could be true, or it could be totally false.
It could be. Well, I mean,
there's really no way to know.
Well, it's not false that they collectively are not endorsing it because they're pretty open when they attack people.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
So, but it could have been a member of it doing it as well. And one last footnote to the PlayStation crisis, the New York Attorney General has now subpoenaed Sony for more information on the data leak.
So they're really getting it from...
They're kind of getting it from all sides.
Like state governments, federal governments.
State governments, federal governments. So the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI are helping them look into investigate the leak.
In addition to the 3 private security firms.
In addition to those.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an interesting times.
Yeah, it is.
In non-PSN news, EA reported their earnings yesterday, in which they said Star Wars: The Old Republic should come out this year, probably.
Maybe.
Maybe. Well, they said they are fully confident it's gonna. This is a great quote from their CFO. We are fully confident. Although we fully anticipate Star Wars: The Old Republic launching between July and December, the low end of our guidance range assumes the outside possibility of a January quarter launch.
Oh, so they put that little back door in there.
Yeah, so it's probably going to come out this year, but it might not.
Well, you never know.
You never know. Crazy things happen. And they just delayed Mass Effect 3 as well.
That's true.
You could be getting a double dose of BioWare come January
2012, the year in which all your gameplay is
get your gameplay in before the apocalypse comes, right? And last but not least, Harmonix's Vice President of Strategy and Business Development, Chris Rogopoulos, not Alex Rogopoulos, I think it's his brother. He talked about kind of what's going on with Rock Band right now. And first and foremost, there's going to be no Rock Band 4 this year. So this is going to be this is going to be the first year, and I don't know how many years, that there's going to be no Guitar Hero or Rock Band. There is that Rocksmith from Ubisoft coming out. Is that what it's called, Rocksmith?
I believe so, and yes, so there will be entries in the rhythm game genre.
But yeah, very few and far between.
But not from the titans that have sort of defined that meteoric rise of that genre.
But there's still going to be plenty of content, including Lady Gaga, Foo Fighters, and Ozzy Osbourne coming through the Rock Band store, which Rogopoulos said they've now sold 100 million songs.
Wow.
On that store.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I might be in the triple digits in terms of song
I'm probably
download.
like 24 myself.
Yeah.
I'm not that.
But 100 million, well, at least, hopefully that's making them a couple bucks.
Yeah, now that they're on their own, now they split from MTV Games, all that money is going into their pocket. So.
Well, good for them, and thank you, Tor, for bringing by the news, giving us the latest on ongoing PSN debacle.
No problem.
And like he said, if you want to read the full transcript of Sony's breakdown,
it's not quite a transcript, more of a timeline.
Full timeline.
Where it's kind of like April 20th, April 21st, so it kind of goes like that.
There's even more screaming on the actual webpage.
Right.
Cool. That's news.gamespot.com. That's where you folks want to go for that. Thank you, Tor. Now, up next, folks, as you may know or are about to know, Video Game History Month, that's what it is in May here. I meant to say that the other way around. May is Video Game History Month here at GameSpot. And we are going to be rolling out all sorts of written features, video features throughout the month, detailing all sorts of things from video game history, celebrating video games, as we love to do and as I know you all love to do. So, our first segment we're going to roll now is on Tokyo Game Show. Its history, its impact, its hordes of Japanese people. Take a look.
North America has the Electronic Entertainment Expo, Europe has Gamescom, and Japan has the Tokyo Game Show. TGS is a premier video game event held annually in the Makuhari Messe. But unlike E3, which is closed to the public, the Tokyo Game Show has multiple days set aside for the gaming public to come out and try games before they're released. And they do come. At the beginning of the public days, massive lines wrap around the Makuhari Messe as gamers patiently await their chance to get into the hall. While Tokyo Game Show is currently held once a year in the fall, there was a period of time between 1996 and 2002 when the show was being held twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, giving fans ample opportunities to try out their favorite upcoming games.
TGS changed a great deal over the years. Way back in the day, it actually used to be a toy show. It was a much more broad sort of event, and within that toy show, there was kind of a game corner where they had some game stuff, but it wasn't exclusively about games. What we saw happen is the game portion of the toy show got bigger and bigger until it eventually branched out and became its own thing. Back in the early days, they actually had 2 TGSs a year. There was the spring show and the fall show. Might be fun for users, but it was really hard for us in R&D and super hard for the PR guys because basically the minute the spring show is over, you're already getting ready for the fall show. The minute the fall show is over, you're already trying to make plans for the next spring show. And it's important to remember too, this is back before the age of CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs. So when we needed builds for shows, we had to manufacture cartridges. Huge, troublesome pain in the neck. Nowadays, we have E3 and we have PAX, we have all these events, but getting a ROM ready once we have the data, it's as easy as burning a DVD-ROM or a Blu-ray. Not so easy back then, not at all.
As a kid, reading about the Tokyo Game Show was always like this really huge thing, right? Because this was an opportunity for the Japanese developers to really show off what they're working on, especially before E3 really kind of took off. Tokyo Game Show was still a huge show, and it still is in a lot of ways, because for us, it's an opportunity to really talk to the Japanese developers on their home turf, whereas, at E3 you kind of have to deal with, kind of the bright lights and a lot of noise and all the other stuff out on the show floor. TGS kind of has a little bit more of a laid-back approach in some ways. It's not that way on the public days. On the public days, it's absolutely crowded. There's all these people lined up. They're watching the stage shows where, these, people who are working on the games come out and they talk to the crowd. They kind of, say a little bit about what they've been working on, what kind of cool features people can expect, and those always draw massive crowds. It's really great to see, people like Hideo Kojima, for example. He'll come out on stage and he'll talk to people, and people get really excited to see him. So there's really an element to that show that I think that E3 lacks in terms of letting the fans interact, not directly with the people who make the games, but at least kind of, letting people know that developers do care about the people who are playing their games.
The organizers eventually decided to hold it only once a year, due in part to the increasing popularity of the Electronic Entertainment Expo as a venue to unveil new games. TGS also sets itself apart from other trade shows because of one very important aspect of gaming culture, and that's cosplay.
We understand it to a certain degree in the West. Probably Comic-Con is the best example of that, where everybody's like, whatever, I'm gonna walk around in a cape, it's cool. But TGS really does take that to a whole other level. When people dress up, they absolutely commit. What is really hard to convey, this whole notion that there's about 2 or 3 halls with spaces in between that are just flooded with people in costume. And it's great, they love to go pose. Like, this is their moment to have their 15 minutes of fame, in some cases longer. And there's lines and everybody's very polite and very excited. In our history, we have participated. And it's kind of a great testament to how into this everybody in Japan is, because they just get excited when they see something new and different.
That's the only show that you go to where you see these cosplayers, these like super passionate fans that love video games so much that they dress up as their favorite video game characters. So to be able to put on a mask and pretend to be one of those people and just goof off and have fun and lose yourself in the crowd of people was a lot of fun, but also incredibly embarrassing, and that's a video that will live forever on the internet and people will never forget it.
The people here are really into it. They're into it to such a level that they're dressing up like characters in costume from their favorite games. I thought it was pretty cool.
Well,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think the thing with TGS that's amazing is that, it's one of those things that you have to see. It's certainly the first of the big consumer shows. Because now you've got things like Gamescom and other shows. PAX are obviously very consumer driven, but it's the first really big consumer show that I'm aware of. And going there was just, the interesting thing as well, there's Business Day, which is a quiet, regular trade show, and then Fan Day, which is insane and fun to be there. And you're like, whoa, get me out of here. But okay, I'll stay for the day, but
I think you aren't going to see too many products on that day because it's just the lineups are kind of around the block. But
you see how people respond to products.
Ideally, you go there the day before and check out the games, and then come back, and go with your friends and family, and then kind of enjoy the spectacle and all kind of yeah.
What I remember is how damn crowded it is. Unbelievable. I remember walking into the first. I think we had a Resistance exhibit there back when Resistance came out. Might have been even earlier, and I just couldn't believe how many people were at this event, and you could not move. And it was hot and sweaty, but nobody seemed to care. So that was cool.
Also reflecting its public atmosphere, TGS features a shopping area where showgoers can purchase action figures, clothing, pillows, and just about anything else you can think of straight from the company. Capcom and Square Enix almost always have the biggest merchandise booths, and unsurprisingly, they also have some of the longest lines of people waiting to spend their money.
I'm a big fan of the Square Enix booth. I have an ever-increasing collection of Dragon Quest toys, which is just actually grown a little bit out of hand, and I should really quit cold turkey this year. Note to self, don't buy any more Dragon Quest toys this year. I've also been eyeing that Leon Kennedy leather jacket at the Capcom booth for about 3 years now, and I'm worried when the time finally comes that I finally snap and buy that thing, because it's pretty sure it's $400, and I really don't need a leather jacket. But the merchandise booths, if you guys ever go to Tokyo Game Show, that is the thing to check out.
That stuff reminds me that I'm a fan. That, even though I'm there to cover TGS in a professional capacity, I'm still some nerdy fanboy of all this stuff. So when I go to the Capcom booth and I see oh look, there's a Raccoon PD shirt, that looks pretty awesome, I think I'll buy it. Just the fan in me comes out, and it's always really nice to have that sort of reminder of why I got into this and why I'm interested in video games to begin with.
Still, TGS is really all about the games and the hardware we play them on. Japanese developers, publishers, and hardware manufacturers all use TGS as an opportunity to get their products out in front of the public, especially just before their release dates. In the past, Sony has used the Tokyo Game Show to showcase its new hardware. Sega, when it was still making hardware, also used the show extensively for its Sega Saturn and Dreamcast games. Of course, Nintendo has always been famously absent from TGS, choosing to hold its own show called Space World, as well as smaller conferences in more recent years, but at any rate, there's always something to look forward to at the show. Despite the fact that the Japanese gaming landscape has changed significantly over the past few years, with fewer companies exhibiting their games at the show, TGS still remains incredibly popular, with attendance numbers remaining high, and it has a distinct charm that E3 and Gamescom lack.
And there's your look at the Tokyo Game Show. Stay with us throughout the month for more video game history. And now we've got video game presence with Carolyn Pettit. Carol, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to have you here. And you've got an Xbox control in your hand, which can mean only one. Well, it means one thing. It means we're playing a game.
It does, yes. A little game. It's called Call of Duty Black Ops. Made a bit of a splash last year, and they're trying to get people interested in it. By releasing a new map pack.
Yep, really spicing it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm here to show
off. As they are wont to do.
The new map pack is called Escalation.
Yes.
And
here you are running through this snowy industrial village.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is this?
This is like a sort of decrepit Russian setting for
bad guy.
stock.
Bad guy.
Oh yeah. So I'm not. I do not excel at talking about games and playing them at the same time.
Yes,
so
here's where we give the caveat, folks.
Yeah.
It is tough to talk about a game descriptively and play it at the same time. We're not talking about talking junk to your fellow teammates or opponents.
Yeah.
No. Trying to show us. We're showing off though.
Yeah.
This is.
So this is the map called Stockpile. There's 4 multiplayer maps in all, and I think they, in general, they seem to have a really good mix of really tight kind of enclosed areas where you can get into really intense kind of close quarters firefights, as well as kind of, large areas where you're, in between those enclosures where you're just kind of out in the open and
sort
really
of have longer lines of sight.
Yeah, and if you're like making your way, oh man,
wow,
if you're making your way through one of those, you're really vulnerable. Yeah. Yes, and like there's one that I particularly like, which is not this one, but it's called Convoy, and it seems to take place in like a small town somewhere between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. It's like just off the freeway, and there's like motels and and I'm really showing off my ability to get killed in this game. But
looking at a level through a kill cam is still looking at a level.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, that level Convoy, for instance, has like has gas stations and motel rooms and all kinds of cool locations that have a really good kind of hello. Oh no!
All right, so next time instead of saying hello, pull the trigger. How about that?
I like to politely introduce myself before killing.
This isn't like gentlemen's fisticuffs from 1915, where you have to like properly introduce yourself and ask appropriate questions about their livelihood.
Just so viewers know, I mean, I'm pretty terrible at this game, but I'm not as terrible as I look right now. So anyway,
and you do have to take her word for it.
You will, or unless I actually encounter you online at some point. And so one thing that they're doing also to encourage people, I think, to get back into it is that this weekend is a double XP weekend. Ooh. So if you do come back and pick up Escalation, you can get back on the fast track by hopping into some death matches or whatever your favorite flavor of Call of Duty multiplayer is.
And get the double XP. That's excellent.
Yes.
Now, we've also got 2 other maps in part of this: Zoo and Hotel.
Yes.
What can you tell us something about those?
Zoo is a really cool kind of. As the name implies, it's kind of got this. It seems like a zoo, like a totally rundown, abandoned zoo in Russia, and it's got this kind of sad amusement park feel to it.
Aww.
And Hotel, unfortunately, I haven't spent much time on Hotel, so I don't want to speak to that one, but because most people seem to be voting for Convoy, like when that one comes up, and this one seemed to be the most popular among players at this point.
Well, one of the other popular parts of this Escalation DLC, of course, is Call of the Dead, a new zombie mode starring like famous actors and characters from the movie. We're actually going to be taking a look at that one a little later in the show, so stick around for that, folks. And if you stick around to the end of the show, we're giving away codes for Escalation. We're going to be giving away through our trivia questions. You can win them, so stick around. Carol and I will be playing later on. She'll be playing, I'll be jibber-jabbering. And taking your questions live off Twitter and in the chat room.
I totally assisted in that kill.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Up next, we have a world-exclusive trailer for a new game called Guardian Heroes HD. That name may be familiar to some of you, and in fact, we'll be following it up with a demo of the original Guardian Heroes starring Ricardo Torres. Yes, that's right. But first, it's Guardian Heroes HD, exclusive trailer. You want to see it? I do. Let's roll it.
Sega.
Xbox 360, starting at $199.
Hey, that was a short trailer, wasn't it? I'm here with, all right, this is just going to hang out for a second. I'm here with Kim Baloff from Sega, and we are about to show you Guardian Heroes HD. Now, this game is 15 years old. Some of you may or may not remember it. It came out in 1996. It came out for the Saturn, so for those of you that didn't actually have a Saturn, you really don't remember this game. But it was really, really cool, and we want to show it to you right now. So we're going to go and... So what you're looking at right now is the actual game, and so what's happened is the game is, sorry, we're doing a couple things back here. So what you're looking at right now is the game without the visual upgrade. So included in the game that is going to come out, which we'll tell you about a little bit later, not the exact date, but the rough idea, is the original game as you see it right now. Now, as far as what we're looking at right now, Ken, why don't you talk to us about what you guys are doing with this game and why you guys had to bring it out?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, this is the first time in 15 years that fans are going to be able to play Guardian Heroes. As some of you may or may not remember, it was one of the really breakout hits of the Saturn. One of the big things about it was that it had multiple branching paths within the game. And as you're seeing here, this is the original Saturn mode. It's going to be included in the game from the start, so it's not an unlockable mode or anything. So if you want to see what it looked like within the Saturn itself, this is it right here. You can definitely take a look at the original sprites. And we're gonna transition now and take a look at the work that Treasure has done. So just to clarify, actually, Treasure is working on this game. So we got the original guys, the original developers. It's sort of a labor of love here to go back, take this game, and re-release it in really stunning HD graphics. So,
all right. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to hop out of the game.
Right.
And we're going to do the switch. And so for folks that don't know, this isn't 100% like a complete redo of the game.
Correct. So we're basically taking the original sprites and modernizing them. As you can see here, these are some of the new renders that we did of the characters. So you'll be able to select between 5 different heroes. And we're going to go ahead and select Randy here and basically take a look. As you see, we're playing the same area again to show you what the up-res look. All these have sort of been redone in high def, and then we've applied different kind of filters on them to smoothen out the graphics, make it really look good. Because we all know we're all playing on HD widescreen systems, so we definitely wanted to take advantage of that. And as you can see, even the magic spells, all the visuals have been really upgraded for this new generation. And honestly, I kind of want to play this more than I want to play the original because it is a lot more easier on the eyes, and I do have an HD TV. So
yeah, if you guys remember the original, it was even on the Saturn, it was kind of chunky. Treasure loved doing big sprites. And we love playing them, but man, it was not pretty sometimes.
Right.
So now to fill you in on the stuff, it isn't just getting a visual upgrade. So Ken, do you want to tell us about the new gameplay stuff that you guys are including?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we all remember, it was a 2-player co-op game, and that element is definitely staying in. But we're adding this battle mode that now we can go up to 12 players in a battle arena and sort of like a free-for-all brawl. So that's going to be something new that we're adding. We've also kept and expanded a little bit the RPG elements. As you remember, that was one of the really great things that Guardian Heroes had. You used to be able to complete a level and then upgrade your character. So if Randy here, you were playing this particular character who's a wizard, you liked his spells, you could upgrade the spells themselves, or you could start upgrading his strength and his combat abilities if you've ended up by finding yourself maybe midway through the game that you really prefer that melee type of combat. You could definitely upgrade the character. So, it gives you an idea of how you can sort of alter the characters even though you picked a certain class at the beginning.
And for Rabbit fans at home, if I remember right, that is Randy's pet rabbit that is hanging out with him.
That is correct.
Through the entire game, and it does attack enemies, and there is actually a special attack you can do with the rabbit, I believe, that hurts people. So.
And it is on top of that one of the characters you can choose from in battle and versus mode. So you can play as that ninja bunny.
This is true. So content-wise, there is this battle mode that Ken talked about where you can mess around with friends, and in addition to using the main characters in the game, like the ones that you're seeing here, you can also pick unlockable characters, and there are about 49, maybe almost 50 characters in the game that you could use, and they were totally random.
That's right.
This was not balanced at all. So yes, you could totally use that rabbit and kind of completely take the match if you were good about it.
Absolutely, and you'll be able to play as like different, like a wolf, and some of the different enemies. You'll go to the graveyard here and you'll find like an undead villains as well that you'll be able to play as. So it's really interesting. But I think the one key element that Guardian Heroes had back in the Saturn, and it stands out really well on XBLA, is those multiple pathways. So there are over 30 levels within the game, and depending on what choices you make at different sort of crossroads, you'll, for example, say, I want to go back to town, or no, I'm going to attack the castle, or I'm going to hide in the forest. And that'll lead you to new choices, and eventually you'll come up with one of different endings that really range within scope. So not to spoil it for people who haven't played it, but some endings are a little bit more local. So for example, you'll save the kingdom, while others you're going to go up and battle cosmic deities and sort of have a much more cosmic and universal scope of an ending. So it's really cool, depending on what you choose, is really the kind of adventure that you're going to end up by playing.
Yeah, it's a little funny that we take so much of this stuff for granted now. Multiple paths, leveling up, all that stuff, which at the time for brawlers just wasn't a thing.
It wasn't. It wasn't a thing in video games either. I mean, this was a really revolutionary kind of gameplay at the time.
You know, and here we have sort of like your buddy, your undead buddy.
Yeah.
Very forward thinking with the use of zombies. You get this undead knight who gets to use this sword, and he becomes a member of like the group that you're traveling with, and you can give him commands in battle. Very simple stuff.
Yeah, it's very simple stuff, and while you can't play as the knight, as the undead warrior, he definitely does take command, and so you can use him to defend or attack, and so he does become a very, very useful companion. So even if you're only playing it single player, it can feel like you're still playing co-op.
And here we go. This is the RPG element. So you earn these points and you can dump them into whatever.
Exactly, and depending on your style of gameplay or where you think you're going to need more, whether it's type of health, or you need more strength, or you need more powers for your magic spells, it's really up to you as the player. And the more you play, essentially, the more you'll upgrade your characters.
And I definitely remember each of the characters are pretty different. The lady in red with the green hair that you saw earlier, she's actually an unlockable character that you can get. And what I remember the most is there's a character called Nicole who's the healer of the group, and her healing spell was basically a point on the ground that would heal anything in it. And I found out the hard way that also meant enemies, and I accidentally healed a boss when I was finishing the game. So that's a little pro tip for you guys before it comes out. But all right, we are going to wrap this up because you guys don't want to show us too much more.
Absolutely, and definitely if you guys like what you see, and I know there's a lot of fans out there for Guardian Heroes, we are going to be taking this game to E3, so if you want to take a look at what those branching paths look like, we definitely will have it playable there at the Sega booth.
All right, and so, everybody wants to know, when's it coming out, and what platform?
This is going to be coming out at the end of the summer, around beginning of the fall. And what we're looking at is, at least for the moment, this will be an XBLA exclusive. So definitely look for it there.
All right, well, thank you, Ken. Now, folks, as Chris mentioned earlier, it is Video Game History Month, and this is actually a slice of history that we're checking out, 15-year-old game. But there's even older games that are around, and so right now we're going to send you to a package for Video Game History Month featuring Duke Nukem.
Duke Nukem is one of the most recognized names in gaming. The character and all the games he has starred in are the epitome of all things crass and brash. An amalgamation of iconic action heroes perpetually stuck in the 90s, the legacy of Duke spans across nearly 2 decades of gaming, albeit with one significant decade-long absence. Starting out as a side-scroller for PCs in the early 90s, the character of Duke Nukem truly came alive with Duke Nukem 3D, developed by 3D Realms in 1996.
One of the things I love about Duke Nukem is he is almost absurdly one-dimensional. The guy is, in a world where all of our heroes have become so emo, and they're like complex and they've got problems. It's like Duke doesn't have any problems, man. He's just there to kick ass and have a good time and to look good doing it.
It really did demonstrate, I think, to people that you can make a strongly character-based game that fulfills a lot of what I think of even in the sense of role playing, where you're defined, you're given a true role, a character, a mood, an interaction style that you really is portrayed to you as what you want to be within the game.
When you think about where Duke came from, I mean, ultimately, he is a cliche of all of the action heroes from his era, his first era. And he's almost like an amalgamation of all of those heroes and then exaggerated. Like, you take all those heroes, put them all together, and then exaggerate that even further, and that's how you get Duke. I think Duke would probably call all those other heroes pussies.
While the design of Duke Nukem 3D was one of the first to bring a noticeable sense of character to the first-person shooter genre, the story of that same game was one of the first to bring a heavy dose of morally objectionable content to gamers. The story of Duke 3D was that aliens had invaded Earth to kidnap all of our planet's attractive women, and it was up to Duke and all his vulgar misogyny to rescue them, while committing as much violence unto the invaders as possible. Brash one-liners, M for mature dialogue, a sprinkling of nudity, and heaping spoonfuls of graphic violence all played their part in the Duke Nukem formula.
Yeah, I think we found the content entertaining. We're certainly not scandalized. I mean, I think that it was interesting that, certainly at that time in the business, it was pretty forward-thinking to actually lead with sort of content that was on the edge. I mean,
it was after like Evil Dead and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, it was sort of some inspiration
reminiscent
from
of that, right?
Yeah,
like some of the lines.
But certainly,
it's
definitely
more humorous
in the game space, it was titillating, shall we say?
But even in 1996, game designers were wise enough to realize that a game chock full of crass content wouldn't be worth much if it wasn't grounded in some strong gameplay fundamentals. While the game featured a solid foundation of first-person shooter gameplay, Duke Nukem 3D also showcased a number of gameplay mechanics that were revolutionary for the time, such as jetpacks, pipe bombs, shrink rays, and more. These and other innovations made the single-player campaign memorable, while bringing some fresh and creative tactics to the game's multiplayer modes.
Well, Duke Nukem, when it came out, we were playing that in the office pretty much non-stop. And
we just started BioWare in a brand new office.
Multiplayer battles, like pretty much every evening at 5 p.m. we would go for an hour or two, and it was awesome. You know, the pipe bombs and kind of running through the areas, and like, there was some kind of like transformation thing where you could transmute someone into.
The Porculator was was Hexen.
That was Hexen? Okay.
Yeah,
there's the midget. You could shrink them down. You could run around and step on them. That was fun. That was a great game.
Yeah, we played it all the time. Actually, it's one of those things like
I liked
every
it
day.
so much that I went back and bought the collector's edition. So I told George Broussard that I have the mouse pad. Still the mouse pad I have at my home. And it's quite worn now, but it's one of my favorite memorabilia from years gone by from video games.
In 1997, 3D Realms announced that they were developing the highly anticipated sequel, Duke Nukem Forever. This announcement was made with the best of intentions, but ultimately would go on to be one of the longest-running gags in video game development history. Duke Nukem Forever was plagued with many long-standing problems, delaying its release for many, many years, until ultimately the inevitable happened. 3D Realms laid off the entire development staff for Duke Nukem Forever in 2009. The project looked to be finally done for when Randy Pitchford of Gearbox Software announced in September of 2010 that his studio would be taking up the banner of finishing Duke Nukem Forever.
You know, a lot of people don't know this, but my first job in the game industry was when I worked at 3D Realms, and my first commercial product that I was part of as a professional game maker was Duke Nukem 3D. And so I feel a lot like I owe the man my career, you know. So when I left 3D Realms in '97, I was kind of like everybody else, watching the development of Duke Forever from the outside. And of course, when the bad news came in May of 2009 that 3D Realms was shutting its doors, that the Duke was dead, can't let the Duke die, man. And I happened to be in a spot where I knew we could help. So I had to do whatever I had to do.
But for all the troubles facing the series' development, Duke Nukem, with all of his goofy one-liners and single-dimensional hyperbole, has become an indelible video game icon. Despite modern games going in drastically different directions from the seeds that were planted by Duke 3D, he remains at the heart of what so many first-person shooters are all about: the big man with a big gun.
It's very interesting how Duke has become iconic. He actually is perhaps in terms of like male action heroes in the video games, he might be the most iconic, which is really astonishing because it's not because of all the great games that have come out. There haven't been any Duke Nukem games for so many years. Yet there he is. He's become very important to gamer culture. He's certainly bigger than me. He's like our Chuck Norris. You know what I mean? Like he's the king, man. He's the king.
Nice.
Oh, Duke, you're incorrigible. All right, folks, we're back live on the set, and Caro Pettit is back.
Yeah. So I was having a hard time with those human opponents, so I think I'm gonna change things up and try my hand against some mindless undead opponents for a change.
The shambling undead are much less likely to be crouching on a balcony and shooting you.
This is true, but they still pose something of a challenge. So this is Call of the Dead. It is the new zombies component of the Escalation pack. And what you have here is 4 celebrities. You got your Danny Trejo, you've got your Sarah Michelle Gellar, your Michael Rooker, and your Robert Englund, probably best known as Freddy Krueger.
That is quite a team.
And they are making a movie with, there he is, legendary zombie movie director George Romero. But a mishap occurs and an actual zombie outbreak happens on the set of the zombie movie, and George Romero turns into a zombie himself. And so let me get into the action here.
I'm glad that we stayed with that long enough to see Buffy roundhouse kick that guy.
Yes.
That was excellent.
So the thing about this mode that makes it really creepy to me is, so you got George Romero who spawns out of the water here. There he is. And he comes at you super slowly. But, and you see, no problem, I can get away from him, whatever. But there's something kind of like Michael Myers in the Halloween, in the Halloween movies, where you turn around and he will be there, and it's terrifying because he is super powerful. And if you shoot at him and you hurt him, he really comes to life and charges you and does all kinds of damage. So I'm gonna try, for the time being anyway, to not mess with George Romero there and just kind of keep my distance from him. So.
So the idea is that until you maybe get some more powerful weapons.
Yeah, so you earn points for killing the zombies, the garden variety zombies here that let you. There's debris that kind of, as you can see here, and you need
in
points.
typical zombie fashion.
Yeah.
you sort of, as you earn more points, you expand.
Yeah, and so you can make your way up into these other areas.
What is he holding?
It's a light, it's a weapon, but it's basically like the kind of bright light that you find on movie sets.
Wow.
Okay, in this freezing cold water, you don't want to stay in it too long because you will freeze
ice
to death
around the edges of your vision.
Yeah, but you can get really cool weapons. Like there is a gun that will turn these zombies back into humans, at which point they then run off and are killed by the other zombies that are around.
Way.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. That's sinister, but that's cool.
It's kind of twisted. God, I need more zombies to kill.
It's like you're saving them, but you're really not. Folks, if you want to kill zombies as Buffy, Danny Trejo, or those other people. I'm failing to
Michael Rooker and Robert Englund.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're giving you codes. Trivia is coming up in just a few minutes, and we're going to be giving away 10 Call of Duty Black Ops Escalation codes. Yes, for the 360, because PSN, not so much.
As it turns
not
out.
only are we going to be giving them away, but Jody and Cynthia are standing by in the chat room. They're going to be giving them away instantly. So you can answer the trivia and then get the code and then be playing within half an hour. Just stick with us and wait for the trivia question, which we'll be delivering. Now, in order to get you prepared for your possible trivia winnings, we've got a starting block put together, giving you some tips on how to, survive this horrible zombie apocalypse. Let's check it out.
If you're looking to get in some quality time this weekend with Call of Duty Black Ops Escalation, we've got some tips to get you a head start on this week's starting block. Call of Duty fans that have been looking forward to playing the 4 new multiplayer maps and the zombie survival map included in Escalation have a lot to discover. The 4 new maps, Convoy, Zoo, Stockpile, and Hotel, are all fairly diverse. Here's a quick look at each so you know what to expect when you get started. Convoy feels similar in setup to previous maps in the series, with clearly designated focal points that work especially well in objective-based games like Domination. The map features a destroyed freeway aesthetic, complete with a shattered overpass that you can surprise enemies when popping up from. Stockpile is another new map that starting out feels a bit more suited for objective-based games. With lots of elevated positions, windows, many of which have great field of vision, also makes the map feel like a likely favorite for players partial to sniping. The For those that like their action a little more up close and personal, Hotel is definitely one of the 4 new maps that is uniquely suited for fans that are a bit more into running and gunning with shotguns and submachine guns. Zoo, as the name and scenery implies, takes place in an abandoned, overgrown zoo. Aside from the empty cages, the map is fairly split between choke points and points with good shooting alleys that have decent visibility. Switching over to the Call of the Dead map for some zombie survival, tip number 1. The man lumbering towards you with a stage light in his hand is George Romero. Stay away from him, or he will end you. Instead, avoid George while blasting and cutting zombies to earn money. You can also rebuild broken structures for a bit of cash. Be sure to do so mostly while watching your back, as holding X will still rebuild even with your back turned. In order to progress your way into the map and survive the rounds of zombies hoarding toward you, you need to earn enough money from killing zombies in order to buy your way past the boats and other debris that are placed in your way. Earning money also lets you buy additional weapons and even perks from vending machines that do everything from letting you deal more damage to reviving you when you die. There are also more than a few secrets. Pressing X on these rocks seen here, here, and here starts the Avenged Sevenfold track, Not Ready to Die. So in closing, by buying these perks, additional weapons, and staying away from George Romero, you should find yourself doing just fine against the living dead when starting out in Call of Duty Black Ops.
There you have it. Hopefully those tips will help you not succumb to the undead wrath of George Romero and friends. That's what they call themselves, right?
Yeah.
Friends.
N apostrophe.
His merry gang of horrible dead people.
Undead people,
Yay,
yes.
Super fun.
Yeah.
So Karo's playing. We had a grisly death earlier.
I survived a few waves of zombies and then perished, and now I'm back.
And you shot George Romero.
All right, I'll shoot you. All right, come on, George. Come on, George.
Take it.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
He's not happy.
He's like,
ow.
Wow, you got lightning.
With the lightning and the, hello. And the running,
and then he breaks into a run, and then there's and then you're getting kicked. Oh, that's horrible.
You know, in fairness, this is a game. This is a mode that really should be played with like 3 friends. Yes. And so I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage.
It's tough out there for a lone
zombie
movie
killer.
star / zombie killer.
Yeah.
All right, folks. As our show draws to a close, we've got one more tape segment for you this week in digital downloads.
What's up, GameSpotters? This is Aaron Sampson bringing you a list of top digital downloads this week on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. New this week on PSN, according to the PlayStation blog, some PlayStation Network and Curiosity services will become available. Sony is starting a phased global rollout of services by region, with the system security enhanced to provide greater protection of personal information. So hopefully PS3 subscribers will be able to get back to online trash talking and noob killing. On the bright side, you now have tons of time to plan for Mother's Day. On XBLA, take on a mind-boggling number of missiles in Bengayo HD Missile Fury. Swarms of up to 1,000 missiles are severely angry with you, and you get to take on their wrath in over 100 different levels. Old but newly available this week, on XBL, over 1.1 trillion shots have been fired in multiplayer. This title shipped over 13 million units in the US, as well as earned a 9.0 Editor's Choice Award and was nominated for Best Shooter of 2010 and Best Competitive Multiplayer of 2010. So if buying a physical DVD copy of Call of Duty Black Ops was holding you back, now's your chance to try it out. With a second map pack by the name of Escalation dropping this week, it's a good time to get into the seedy government underworld of the 60s. Also on the radar this week is Monster Madness Battle for Suburbia. Although with a 5.0 mediocre score, you may want to check out the full review of this 2007 title first. The Unreal 3 engine-powered top-down shooter pits up to 4 players against a menagerie of monsters in a rural area with great school districts and in commute distance of a major city. There's really just one big player and new DLC this week, and Escalation Pack is its name-o. Escalation is the second map pack for Call of Duty Black Ops and drops 5 new maps, Zoo, Convoy, Hotel, and Stockpile, as well as the Call of the Dead Grindhouse mode fired by George Romero, starring Danny Trejo, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Robert Englund, and Michael Rooker. In-game trailers, maximize your Black Ops with the Call of the Dead trailer and Taste of Escalation trailer. Side note, the Gatling Gears teaser trailer looks pretty cool too. That's all for now. Check back next week for our top picks of digital downloads.
And there you have it, folks. Quick chat room question from Meiji Kojin, asking what our favorite characters are to play as in Call of the Dead. I'm going with Buffy, Slayer of the Vampires, as my pick.
Yeah, I'd have to say Danny Trejo. I mean, he's got the whole kind of grindhouse history, the whole machete thing.
Do you ever actually get to use those machetes? Maybe.
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 Let's just leave it up to mystery for now.
All right, excellent. You want to find out for yourself, folks? You could win. It's trivia time. We're going to be giving those things away. First, we got 2 questions. What do we got here? Gatling Gears. You guys remember last week on the spot we had an awesome demo for that game, and we're giving away 3 codes to download Gatling Gears on Xbox Live Arcade. So, if you want to win Gatling Gears codes, here's the question. What Gatling Gears multiplayer mode was revealed on last week's On the Spot segment? Of course, for both these trivia questions, you're going to want to answer them in one of 2 ways. 1, press the blue answer trivia button on the side of the page. I just pointed it to it on the computer. It's pretty slick. Press the answer trivia button on the side of the page, or send us an email to onthespot@gamespot.com. The second question for the Call of Duty Black Ops Escalation codes is as follows. What was the first zombie movie directed by the famous director featured in Call of Duty Black Ops Escalation? You think you know those answers? Send them in using the aforementioned methods, and we'll get you some free stuff. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool, and maybe you can get a chance to survive or die.
Look out, because I'll be playing, and as you can see, I am a force to be reckoned with.
So on point.
Yes.
So, folks, this brings us to the end of our show where we tell you about some of the cool stuff that's coming up. Well, tomorrow we've got a Now Playing, and being that it's Video Game History Month, this is a retro Now Playing. We're going to be taking a look at Mortal Kombat, playing those games, the games that really kicked off one of the first big furors over violent video games.
The controversy about the blood in that game, and I mean, it really was a draw. I mean, that was why crowds of kids stood around the game at the arcade, was because the level of violence was just so far beyond anything that we'd ever really seen before in a major video game.
And the level of disappointment that you would hear every time somebody would fail to do a fatality.
Yes.
Epic. Hopefully we'll see plenty of fatalities tomorrow. Our Now Playing will be airing at 4 p.m. Pacific time, same time as On the Spot. That's tomorrow, and throughout Video Game History Month, we're going to have them every Friday. We're doing Twisted Metal. That one's going to have some surprises, so mark your calendar for that one. Duke Nukem and Tomb Raider as part of Video Game History Month. And of course, we'll be featuring written features, videos, and whatnot on the spot. We'll see you here next week, same time, same studio. For everyone backstage, I'm Chris Waters.
I'm Caro Pettit.
Saying thanks a lot for joining us, and have a good weekend.